Okay, what an honor. Tom Emmanuel, welcome to the Guitar Geeks podcast.
The Guitar Geeks. That's
yeah.
me.
We all are.
Are you a guitar geek too, Andreas?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you're talking my language.
Yeah. We're so glad that you said yes, because you've been one of our most frequently asked for guests by our listeners.
Thank you. Well, hello, listeners, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. So welcome to Sweden. I think you've been here, touring here for... I think it's like 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
First time you played here, we just talked about that.
Yeah, it was the first time was in 2006, and my agent, who was then in the Netherlands, rang me and said, "Can we do a second show on the night that you're in Stockholm?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the first one sold out so quickly, and they have a waiting list of people, and it's big enough to fill a second show." Yeah. So I said, "Well, how is that possible? I've never played there before, you know." And he said, "I don't know, but the demand is there. Let's do it."
Yeah.
So I said yes, and we fitted 2 shows into the one night. And of course, I asked the audience, "How do you know about me?" And they all sang out, "YouTube."
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of YouTube. I didn't even know what that was. In fact, I didn't own a computer. So that's probably why.
Yeah.
I was a late computer bloomer, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine sent a link to a video that had more than 1 million views, and it was Guitar Boogie.
Yeah.
And it was filmed in England back in about 2001 or something like that. And it had gone all around the world, and it went ahead of me. So I'm very grateful for the internet for that, because my first trip to China, they all knew my songs. Yeah. My first trip to Russia, I was treated like I was one of the Beatles or something. It was unbelievable.
That's incredible.
And so, you just can't underestimate the power of that. And couple that with word of mouth, and you've got a powerful force. That's all without a hit record or a hit movie or whatever, I was telling some students the other day that, in each country, I usually have at least a 10-year plan, So I come into Sweden, I play a small hall, then I move to a slightly bigger hall, then I try to get on TV and on radio and all that sort of stuff, and then I slowly move to a big hall. But what I'm chasing are 2 things: the best venue in town and the best promoter.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes the promoters that you really want, you have to come to their attention.
Yeah.
And by that I mean they're looking at the figures of all touring artists, and the ones who are consistently rising are the ones that get their interest. And I'm just talking business now.
Yeah.
And not that I'm not a person driven by business. However, I'm smart enough to know if you want to get somewhere in the business, you better be aware of how you can build it and who's the right people to help you, because you can't do it yourself.
No.
And so, I'm now in Sweden. I'm with Live Nation, and they're the biggest.
They're the biggest.
They're the ones.
Full stop.
Full stop. They're the ones I was after. But, I couldn't get their attention when I was playing to 400 people.
No.
It had to be at least 1,000 and then more, So tonight we're at Circus.
Yeah.
And we have over 2,000 sales. So
fantastic.
This is great.
Yeah.
And
it's a beautiful venue. It's
a great
one of my favorite
venue.
ones.
Yeah.
Great sounding too.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So what drew you to the guitar? When did you start playing?
I started playing when I was 4.
Oh, wow.
And I was already in love with music long before that. And I used to do stuff like my mother could play a bit of guitar, and so she would sing songs and play the guitar, and I would, sit at her feet and watch her and listen to her. And when she put the laundry in the washing machine, this is back in the 50s, and she'd crank the handle of the gearbox on the side, and it would go kunk 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 kunk
right.
kunk kunk kunk,
like a drum machine.
So that was a groove, and that would hypnotize me. She said I used to fall asleep against the washing machine because the groove was so constant. So that was my early life. My first guitar was a cheap guitar, and it was a little hard to play, but I persevered with it. I had unusually big hands for a little boy.
Was it like a three-quarter size?
It was a three-quarter size, but I had these massive hands, and they looked abnormal for a little kid. And so there was something going on there, And I'm one of 6 children, and we all wanted to play music.
Yeah.
So we started out as a quartet, the 4 older children. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Yeah.
But my older siblings, we formed a quartet, and that's how we started.
Like the Emmanuels, or
the Emmanuel Quartet.
Yeah.
Yep. And we did music by the Shadows, by the Ventures, by Jorgen Ingerman.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Eddy.
Yeah.
And then we started learning other music that came out of New Zealand. There was a great guitar player in New Zealand called Peter Poser.
All right.
And Peter played a similar style to the kind of surfy instrumental stuff.
Like Dick Daley, kind of, like Dick Dale? Or
Yeah, a little bit like Dick Dale, but a bit more interesting, like a bit more Irish influence. And,
cool.
Yeah, he was really cool. And so my brother and I worked out a lot of his songs, and that's the kind of stuff we were playing. We were an instrumental act.
You're doing on acoustics or electrics? Or
Only electrics in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my first acoustic when I was about 10, I think.
Yeah.
Until then, I just played a Maton solid body electric guitar through a little Maton amp.
Yeah.
And they're all Australian made.
Yeah.
And we travelled around Australia until my father passed away when I was 10. And he had a massive heart attack and died. Okay. And so we kind of came off the road and went to school. But my brother and I formed another band and just kept playing, and we still do.
Cool.
What I'm doing tonight, Andreas, is living the dream.
Yeah.
This was my dream when I was a kid, to be a concert player.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew that's what I wanted, and that was my vision for my life,
That's very inspiring. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of talented people in the world, but not all of them have a vision of where they belong.
That's true.
So they either stumble and fall and give up, or because it's too hard, or they almost get there several times and then they reach a point of disappointment.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they don't see themselves in their success. And I've always, like, my attitude. It's not what's the word? It's not arrogant.
No.
It's like, if you don't give it everything when you're out there, then get out of the way and let me out there, because I will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what's propelled me all my life.
Yeah. And that's why you're here tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And the amount of work that I put into to my playing and my writing and all that sort of stuff is a daily thing. I'm working on it all the time. And I try to give my audiences everything I possibly can every show.
Well, and you do. Everybody who's seen you live know that you do. And I think it's a big part of your success, because you can't. When people go see you live, I've seen you live twice. Mm-hmm. It's
all or nothing.
It's all or nothing from the first note.
Exactly.
It's so much energy and passion and groove and everything.
I remember when I first, when I was in LA for the first time, and I wanted to see Larry Carlton play. Yeah. I wanted to see Steve Lukather play, and all my heroes, of that era. And we went to see Luke play at the Baked Potato, and he had Jeff Beccaro, Pops Popwell, and Greg Matheson. It was a great band. But every time Luke took a solo, I mean, he lifted me out of my seat. I couldn't sit down while he played. Yeah. I had to jump up, because he lifted me out of the seat. And the guy who was with me was a guitar teacher from Guitar Institute. Yeah. And he said, watch the commitment behind every note. Yeah. And that was a great lesson for me. It opened my eyes to. Yeah. I was already doing that, but I turned that up. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I really got to work on everything, because the best thing for a person from Australia was, Australia is a big country, but it has a small population.
Yeah.
And if you have success, people are ready to chop you down. He's okay, but he's no Hendrix, or whatever.
It's kind of the same here.
Yeah.
It's
So
culture.
the best thing that I did was in the late 70s. I was working in bands and working in studios, and I was saving money. The best thing I did was use that money to fly to LA to see people who were much better than me and inspire me. And because I needed that. And I needed to be constantly in a state of inspiration, so that I could reach a higher level. I could break down the walls that were created by my childhood and by the attitude of people around me in my own country. I had to bypass all that and see past it. And I did, and I've always been that way.
Did you have that vision even as a kid? Like,
yes,
this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to go.
Absolutely,
I'm going to be there.
I remember when I wrote to Chet Atkins, I was 11, and Chet was the greatest instrumentalist of all time in those days, And I wrote a fan letter to him as a kid, and he wrote back to me, and he sent me a photo,
wow.
and it was a beautiful moment,
Oh, yeah.
And I said to my mother, I'm going to meet him and we're going to play together. And she said, I bet you will.
Yeah.
So having said that, that was my prophecy, and it came true. I met him and we worked together in 1980.
Yeah.
That was the first time.
That's fantastic.
And then we stayed in touch, and I then had a lot of success in Australia as a solo artist.
Yeah.
And
this is like early 80s?
No, this is late 80s, early 90s.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. During the earlier 80s, I was working for CBS as a producer, producing artists and trying to get some hits.
Yeah.
And I was also playing in a few different bands.
In Australia?
In Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working 7 days and 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
I was busy as hell.
Yeah.
But every now and again, when the bands I was playing would be off the road, I would book myself a gig at a jazz club or something, and play my solo acoustic show. And I started getting a lot of bookings, and I didn't have to share the money with 12 other people.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Yeah. So the idea started to form slowly about what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
That started to come in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
And
so
then
what drew you to the solo guitar style and the thumb picking?
Because no one else was doing it.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt natural to me.
Yeah.
And, there was enough people out there trying to play like Lee Ritenour and Larry Carlton.
Yeah.
I love that music too. But I'm also aware that there's a certain number of audience that you're going to get playing that kind of music, and that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go way past that. I didn't see any limits, and I still don't. It may take me till I'm 85 to play to 10,000 people as in my own show, but by God, I'll do it.
Yeah. I don't doubt that at all. It will happen.
I just wanted, my music to get around the world. I wanted to be able to tour as a solo artist, and just see where I could take it. Because during the 80s and 90s in Australia, I did everything that you can imagine an artist would do without making a record singing. You know what I mean? I played solo. I played in jazz bands. I played in funk bands, rock bands, country bands. I did blues festivals. I played with orchestras. I played with a string quartet. I did comedy shows. I did game shows.
Yeah.
I was even in movies. I had to go at everything purely for the experience.
Yeah.
To expand my horizons and expand my vision of where I could see myself in the world, And all that has really helped me, because when I was young, playing in bands and playing cabaret kind of things, I always watched either the host or the comedian. I would watch them really closely to experience their how they handle the audience, the timing, the jokes, and how it all worked, you know, because that's what I wanted to. I wanted to be an entertainer.
You are.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was important for me to do all that, and I still study people.
Yeah.
You know, when I got time after shows or you know, early in the morning because I'm an early riser.
Yeah.
I might watch a bit of a movie and watch how someone handles something like Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise, or, you know, just to get an idea of someone whose excellence is obvious to the world. I want to learn from them.
Yeah.
You know.
So what was the transition from producing and playing in bands into doing like solo guitar? Was the solo guitar picking up that much, or what made you
it was
choose that path?
I started to do well. What I needed was some good, strong arrangements of some good songs, and that's where my arrangement of Classical Gas and stuff like that all came from that period. Because I started getting booked in pubs and clubs where they normally only had bands.
Yeah.
So I'm now this solo guitar player playing as loud as hell. And I'm playing to the same amount of people that a rock band's playing to, but I'm a solo acoustic guitarist, and I'm jumping around the stage and I'm giving it everything, you know. And that was my kind of training ground for once I got a good 2-hour show, real solid, of all good arrangements, good songs and all that. Then I could then move. Once I started selling out the big kind of rock rooms, then I wanted to move to the theater so I could play with a lot more dynamics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was my goal. So I slowly worked up to that. And and then I started coming over to LA and Chicago and New York, playing small places and starting to build an audience. And then in 98, I moved away from Australia.
Yeah.
And I moved to England because that's where my wife wanted to go.
All right.
And we had a second daughter that following year, and that's Angelina, who I wrote the song for.
Yeah.
She was born in England.
Yeah.
And I started working around England. I found an agent who would book me and who had a lot of experience. And I started playing, you know, town halls and, you know. I started out in places where you could seat between 250 and 300 people.
Yeah.
I did that for a couple of years, and then I built it to the bigger halls.
Yeah.
And now in London, I play Royal Festival Hall, which is about as big as this place tonight. So that was that 10-year plan, you know.
Yeah. That's great. And now you reside in Nashville, Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I've been there for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to live, you know.
Yeah.
I originally went there to work with Chet Atkins, and so we would play Monday nights at a local venue, and then we'd go on the road and do some shows on the road, and then come back and do the following Monday night, and that was great, you know, and I got to know everybody and networked a little, and then we lost Chet in 2001.
Yeah.
And I've been working tirelessly since then, building myself around the world, you know.
Yeah.
I still do about 300 concerts a year.
Oh, wow.
So I'm still busy. And, you know, as tough as it is out there to sell concert tickets, because there's so much competition and so much demand, and a lot of people are struggling in other countries. Not so much here in Sweden, I'm sure, but in other countries like America, people are struggling. But I still get great crowds, and I'm so grateful for that, you know. And that's why it's important that every time you go on the stage, this may be your last time, so you better give it everything you got.
That's the right spirit.
I think so.
300 shows a year. That's like it's you and B.B. King when he was alive.
Yeah, BB, well, what a great guy. Him and Buddy Guy were terrific people.
Yeah. So you want to talk a bit about your Maton guitar?
Sure. I carry Maton guitars on the road with me. I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
and each one is a little different, but it's the same pickup and the same mic system.
Yeah.
It's the one that comes with the guitar. They're all Australian woods.
Yeah.
So when people say to me, you know, "Oh, you must really miss Australia," I say, "Well, I open my case and there's a bit of it." You know? And on my strap is the Aboriginal flag.
All right.
And a kangaroo.
Yeah,
And a little map of Australia.
Yeah.
So it's always close to my heart. You
Yeah.
know? But the guitars are for me, I've played Maton since 1960.
Yeah,
So
that was
it's a
your first
long
guitar.
time. It's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do have other guitars, of
Yeah,
course.
of course you do.
I have a Larrivee that John Larrivee gave me back in 96.
Yeah.
And I have some Martins and Gibsons, and I have some handmade guitars made by luthiers in the United States.
Yeah.
I still play electric guitar a bit at home and
Yeah.
occasionally on people's records.
Yeah.
And I still use the same old 66 Telecaster.
Yeah.
That I've always loved, you know. I don't really have a huge arsenal of guitars, you know. I can just get just about anything I want out of that Telecaster.
Oh yeah, the Telecaster is kind of a desert island
It's
guitar.
a real universal instrument.
Yeah, it is.
But the Maton guitars are just getting better and better. The system is really fine now.
Yeah.
And in the early days, back in the early '80s, I was playing a Takamine, a Japanese guitar, because after the Ovation, they were the only acoustic guitar with a decent pickup.
Yeah.
You know. And I had a deal with Bose in those days.
Yeah.
So I had this massive Bose rig.
Yeah.
With bass bins and the top boxes.
Yeah.
And if you plug that into Crown amps and I used to do my own mix on stage.
Yeah.
So you could get it pretty loud, but with the pickup in the Takamine with a little EQ, you could make it sound really good. Not too kind of piezo square wavy, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so between the guitar and the Bose system, I could get a really good acoustic sound. And the people from Maton came to me, and they were almost out of business because Takamine, Yamaha, Ibanez, and all those companies had infiltrated the market in Australia and were just killing everyone else.
Yeah.
And they came to me and they said, "Well, you're the only instrumentalist playing acoustic guitar that has any profile. Why are you playing a Japanese instrument?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm playing this instrument because it has a great pickup, and I need that.
Yeah.
Your guitars are better, but your pickups are terrible."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, help us out. What can we do to get you playing one of our guitars?" I said, "Let's have a look at this pickup and see what makes it tick. And I'll tell you all the things that I'd like to change about it and make it better." So we kind of took the pickup apart, and I said, "It's too heavy.
Yeah.
The batteries are on the inside, and it's too awkward. If you put it flat out, it starts to square wave. It starts to distort.
Yeah.
There's not enough mid-range control, and I want more output, and I want a microphone inside that I can control.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't want a stereo jack. I don't want a stereo guitar cable. Just a normal guitar cable.
Yeah.
So everything's run by the preamp.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Well, this has never been done before." And I said, "Well, let's do it."
Yeah.
So they got the design of what we call the AP5 mic system.
Yeah.
And it's super light. It's a plastic kind of casing. The batteries go in the top. It has onboard dial that you can dial in as much mic as you want. You can dial in the pickup. Then you've got a master volume, and you can turn. I usually leave that on 10. You know?
Yeah.
Everything's flat out. That's how those pickups are designed to run. And then you've got a sweepable mid-range. You can find the mids that you really like and boost them or take them away or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And you've got bass treble as well. So you've got all the controls on board, and you just plug it in and away you go. And
do you ever change that from like venue to venue, or do you leave that up to your front of house guy?
No, I don't have to do. I can change things. Like for instance, if I go to a song where I just play with my fingers and no pick, then I'll bring the bass down a little so the mids come out better. I don't add mids. I take away a bit of the bass.
Oh,
You see what
right.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I play like a Merle Travis tune where I want a big thumping bass,
Yeah.
I just honk the bass up a little and hit it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And it just speaks so well. These guitars and this pickup system has a front on the note that not many other pickups have, and it's a beautiful sound. I played a guitar yesterday in Gothenburg
Yeah.
that was a Chinese-made nylon string guitar with a new K&K system in it, and
All right.
that sounded fabulous.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what it was, but I think that's the next best thing I've heard was the new K&K system.
Oh, cool.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I love K&K myself.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So, well, they've come so far, haven't they? You know.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing is, I always cover the hole with a feedback buster and put my mic flat out, and
Yeah.
that's how I get the sound, because that then causes a lot more air to be around your sound.
Yeah.
And when you're in the audience, what's coming out the PA sounds like your head is almost inside my guitar.
Yeah.
So pick up on 10, mic on 10. That's how I get my sound.
All right.
Yeah, and I use an AER dual mix preamp, which is one signal that goes into the PA.
So that's your DI box.
That's
kinda.
my DI box, but
Yeah.
that's direct to the end. But that is already pre-EQ'd kind of thing, and
Yeah.
everything's set flat, and it's a big signal, right?
Yeah.
And then I go on a bypass and go into the AER Compact 60 amp, and then I come out of that direct, and Steve, my sound man, adds those two signals together, direct and amp.
Oh, cool.
And those two sounds become one big signal.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for all the frequencies. And I can get more bass and bigness and low mids out of that direct signal, and then I get some real punch and high end from the amp.
Yeah.
And you mix the two together and it's just right,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, your live album sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's Steve. Steve did the live mix. It was recorded by my friend Brad Benj,
Yeah.
who mixed it in his home studio, you know?
Yeah.
And it was all analog mixed.
And I guess you probably mic'd the room as well.
Yes, there were about 6 mics in
Yeah.
the room. And so there was the two direct signals and a couple of stage mics so you can hear a little bit of the monitor as well.
Oh, cool.
You know? Yeah.
So you use the AER. Is that your only monitor now, or do you have?
No, I use side field. I have a PA on stage.
Yeah.
You know, like a small PA pointing at me from the sides. And then I have 2 monitors in front with a bit of guitar and voice in it.
Yeah.
But see, this is a big place, so I've got to make a big noise in there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, so wherever I go on the stage, I can hear
that's good.
my guitar, and I can hear the front on the note. It's important for me with things like Summer Over the Rainbow, where I can hear the detail, you know, and hear the dynamic and get things to resonate together and all that sort of stuff, which creates the beauty in the music that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Do you use any like effects or?
No.
Steve
does all that out the front. He's a master at reverbs.
Yeah, and I think at least one of the times I saw it was a real like subtle delay kind of. You played a delay thing. Too.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing all that.
Okay, so he's doing that.
I don't have to. My signals are totally dry on stage because then I can hear all the detail of, what I'm doing.
No verb in the
verb, no nothing.
All right,
just dry sound.
Yeah,
that helps me to play better.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's what do you call that? It's discipline.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah,
it's the discipline side of my playing where I don't want to cover things with reverb. Steve can, as good a reverb as I could have on stage. He's got a better one out front.
Totally.
You know, and he knows how to use it. You know, I do this thing in the start of a song called Lewis and Clark.
Where
I play this sort of Indian thing. And then I go shh, like that, just to like someone shaking a bag of sand or something, and he just goes, psh, like that in the reverb, and he's doing that.
He's the second band member then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He plays the music, and now I have a full-time lighting director, Zach Korp from Chicago, and Zach plays the music with me with the lights.
That's awesome.
It is. There's no show out there like it. It's so different, you know.
Yeah.
So and I'm always trying to do things to, you know, make it better and bigger and better.
Yeah, yeah.
And those lights are important. They create such an atmosphere.
Yeah.
And they make me perform better.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And for when you record in like miking your guitars, do you have like
most
favorite?
people ask me which mics do you use and blah 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 and all that. Well, the truth is, I don't profess to know a lot about microphones.
No.
Okay? I know when I sit in front of one and I hear it in headphones, I know how good it is.
Yeah.
But what's more important to me is who I'm working with.
Yeah.
Who is my engineer?
Yeah.
Because he has to be someone who does an incredible job.
Yeah.
And so I've used two different people over the years. I've used Mark DeSisto in Los Angeles. When he records my acoustic guitar, there's no sound like it. It's beautiful. And he usually just uses one mic.
Yeah.
It's a Neumann 149.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he opens the capsule and he moves it around until we both agree that there's the sound. We've got headphones on.
Yeah.
And the guitar sounds totally natural and like your ear is right in front of the hole.
Yeah.
So I use him for this last couple of albums, my live album and Accomplice One, my new album. That's Brad Benge.
Okay.
Yeah, and Brad used to do live sound for me on the road.
Okay.
But he's now he has a good studio in his house in Nashville and a great selection of mics. Yeah. He uses some new Audio Technica ones, which always sound good to me, and he uses a Rode as well.
Yeah,
the Australian mic.
Yeah.
So you know, but to me, it's all about using the right people. You know what I mean? It still comes back to that.
Yeah.
But people who write to me and say, "What mic did you use on such and such a recording?" I say, "Well, it's probably a KLM 184, or a Neumann 87, it'll be a good mic, you know."
Yeah.
But when I made a TV special for PBS in America, and we used a Earthworks microphone, which looked like a tail of an animal or something with a little end on it. That thing sounded amazing on my Larrivee.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get right on it, you know.
Yeah.
And there's another one. There's a Shaw Brothers SM81, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, the long, thin, silvery-looking mic with a three-way switch on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good mic, too, because you can get right on it, you know.
Yeah.
I tried Royers and ribbon mics and all that, and they're amazing, but you can't get right on them. And
no, too much bass.
Too much, just they kind of woof out.
Yes.
And when I'm playing on a mic, I like to get up on it, you know, and use the dynamics of it.
Yeah. And do you use your headphones to move around to kind of get the sweet spot?
That's for me, you know. It's one of my favorite things is recording because I can be wearing headphones and hear everything so clearly. Yeah, you know, so it's a whole different world to playing live.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it makes you play better.
Yeah,
because you're inside your own playing, and if you're really feeling it, you know that you've got all this dynamic range to work with and to be expressive and.
So is that Larrivee? Is that one of your like main recording guitars, or?
It suits certain songs.
Yeah,
definitely, and I play it at home a lot too. Yeah, it's a beautiful guitar. It's called a C10.
All right.
And John Larrivee saw me play with Chet Atkins, and came up to me after the show and said, "I have something I'd like to give you," and he gave me this guitar. And under the strings was a note saying how much he loved my playing and everything. And please have this guitar as a gift.
Oh, wow.
And there are no strings attached. That's what he said.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I still play it, and I still love it.
Yeah. Do you ever use like smaller bodied guitars? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I Martin 017s.
Yeah.
I have a pre-war guitar. That's the brand.
Okay.
And it's a 00028.
Yeah.
It's just like the best Martin you've ever played. It's just not a Martin. It's
Yeah.
handmade by these guys.
All right.
And it's exactly the same, and it's beautiful. So I have that, and I have a couple of Gibsons.
Yeah.
And I have an old Gibson Kalamazoo from the 30s, which
cool.
gives me that a cross between a Del Vecchio resonator guitar and a Django guitar. It's
Yeah.
somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And I used that on an album with Frank Vignola, and in order to get that sort of Django type tone, you know,
Yeah.
singing vibrato
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah.
And those old guitars where the wood is really dry, they just speak so well.
Oh
you
yeah.
know? So, yeah, and I have a couple of Martin D28s that I use for
Yeah.
kind of bluegrass things. And,
Yeah.
let's see. I have a Martin from 1865, which is
wow.
a parlor guitar, like a
Yeah.
little parlor-shaped
Yeah.
guitar, in a little black coffin kind
Yeah.
of case, in mint condition, you know. It was given to me by this guy his grandmother inherited it from the Civil War or something, and she looked after it, and it ended up in
wow.
my hands. So I have that at the house.
It must be super light.
It almost floats away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super. I don't want to take up all your time.
right.
You're gonna have probably a dinner and
Yeah, we're going to
and
have
it's-
dinner in 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, and then it's almost showtime.
Yeah. Meet and greet at 6:30, show at 7:30.
All right. So
Yeah. My normal daily routine
yeah.
is I get to the venue, I start playing,
Yeah.
I eat some fruit, and then
Yeah.
I go do a sound check and play a while. Then then we eat, then I change my strings,
Yeah.
and then I do a meet and greet, meet people, sign autographs, get photos with them, and all that sort of stuff. And then it's showtime.
And today you squeezed me in as well.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I made my sound check really, really quick, so we
Thank
can
you so
talk
much.
today.
Yeah.
So
Well, a last question. You talked about strings. What strings do you use?
yeah, I use these.
Alice Martin.
I have my own model Martin,
Yeah.
which is a FlexiCore SP.
Yeah.
And the other one I like is the new Martin SP. It's a little tougher, you know. But when I get asked all the time, what's the best string and what do you use? I actually vary the strings. I don't just use Martins exclusively. I like Diodario.
Yeah.
I like Ernie Ball's Everlast string. That is a really good string.
Oh, I haven't tried those.
That's a great string.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only strings I don't really like and don't use are Elixir strings.
Yeah.
Because they don't suit my guitars. There's nothing wrong with the string.
No.
It just doesn't suit your guitar. What a player should do is experiment with different brands until they find where the guitar feels the best and tunes up the best.
Yeah.
You know? And when you plug in, like I do all the time, you need to get as much overtones from the string as possible,
Yeah.
because that translates through the pickup, and your ear
Yes.
thinks it's a lot more acoustic than it really is.
Yeah.
You know, because of those overtones. And that's what I'm looking for those beautiful ringing overtones.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and dead strings don't sound good unless you're going for that sound.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's a daily routine. You change strings.
No,
It's like-
not every day.
No.
But I will today, because these strings I put on yesterday, I had some tuning issues with them, and I noticed I had it again today, and I said,
All right.
okay, they're going to go.
Yeah.
I'll put these on tonight, Martin
All right.
SPs, and there won't be any tuning
Yeah.
problems.
How many guitars do you carry?
3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
For different tunings or?
Yeah, that's the idea. I don't want to be, spending time tuning on stage.
No.
And plus, it's 3 different sounds as well. One, this guitar here that I have in my dressing room,
Yeah.
that's my kind of number one, stays at normal guitar tuning, right?
Yeah.
I don't alter it in any way. So it settles in, and I usually don't have any tuning problems And then the other guitar, which is a cutaway with a slightly thicker body,
Yeah.
that one has medium strings on it, and I tune it to drop D and drop G sometimes. And then the third guitar is a normal signature model 808 Maton, and I have medium strings on that. Normal guitar tuning, but down a whole step.
D to D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lower sound.
Yep.
And I use that for some ballads and stuff where I play harmonics.
Yeah.
And so I've got like hardly any microphone at all, just all pick up, mids are up a bit more.
Yeah.
And so when you then put reverb and delay on, the notes just speak right through because there's the right amount of mid-range. And I don't play it hard. I play it fairly gently, you know.
And you don't use thicker strings for the down tune guitar?
Yeah, I use 13 to 56.
All right.
Yeah, this guitar I use 12s.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, Ernie Ball, Everlast, D'Addario, and the best I think are Martin.
Yeah.
But they're the best from my guitars. See, I'm not saying your guitar may prefer GHS or whatever, Dean Markley, or you know. So you have to find what works for you, you know.
Yeah.
And that applies to the guitar too, doesn't it? You know.
Totally, I agree.
When people say, "What's the best guitar?" You know, is it a Martin or a Gibson or blah blah blah? I said, the best guitar is the one that you can't put down.
Yeah.
The one that you love playing so much.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who made it, how much it cost, where it was made, or any of that.
Yeah.
If you love it, that's the one.
That's a good way to end this podcast.
Thanks, Andres.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks
you.
for letting me yak away here today.
My pleasure. Have a good show.
Thanks.